Really excited about our next guest. Haven't heard a whole lot from him since he was let go by the Cleveland Browns in 2016, early 2016. He was the general manager there for several years. Before that, the director of pro personnel for the Kansas City Chiefs. And prior to that, a scout for 4 seasons with the Atlanta Falcons, and is a former NFL player himself. Ray Farmer. Ray, the regime is different. The results are the same. It seems like an exercise in futility year after year. More talk about the overall number 1 pick than about the wins or about the progress. Why is it so hard to win there? What are the biggest obstacles?
For me, I think there's several things in play. One thing is culture, and winning begets winning, as losing begets losing. So, not that it becomes a habit, but I think the habitual side of losing comes because there's too many plans, too many random pieces, too much turnover. So whether you like it or not, even though losing is never fun or helpful for the cause that people are facing now or in the past, for whatever reason, they got to decide whatever football group they have and choose to be patient. Some of the greatest things that have happened in this league have happened because of circumstance where people have been patient and given people an opportunity to bring one plan to fruition before they jettison it and decide to execute something different. So you have one coach that comes in and says he wants to build a battleship. You have another coach that comes in and says he wants to build a helicopter. And before you know it, you got all these random pieces for different projects you started, but none of them really add up to one thing.
Certainly seems like the constant in Cleveland is the turnover, and it happens every few years, regardless of the resumes or the history. That seems to be a piece that hasn't changed for a long time. You were there until 2016. You look back on your time there. What would you do differently?
Considering the decisions that I had a chance to really be impactful for, I think the number one thing I would do differently is reduce risk. I would stick with what I know to be true and reduce the noise in and around me. So, you eliminate those negative agendas and alternative agendas different than myself and or the coach. And then the next case I would say would be, I had a hands-on owner. Jimmy has him as a hands-on owner. And I like Jimmy. He's a good guy, easy to talk to. I would spend more time with ownership to maintain that trust. So I think all in all, when you have a good chance to get together with a group, you got to make sure you, eliminate the risk, stay true to what you know to believe, and reduce the noise around you. So you get rid of those negative agendas and those alternative agendas.
All right. So then thinking about some of the other situations where they've had turnovers lately, the one that comes to mind, because there's a lot of excitement around it, is San Francisco. The Niners have John Lynch, who's a brand new GM, and a first-time head coach in Kyle Shanahan. They've got a couple wins. They've also brought in what they hope can be their franchise quarterback. But what about the time that it takes when you're rebuilding from scratch? Where should you start seeing results to know that you're actually moving forward?
I think to see results comes in both your players and their understanding and their ability to buy into what's being taught. So again, people think football is football and changing coaches, it's pretty simple. It's not. It's not easy for guys to come in and learn new systems and execute new game plans and really get a feel for what people are trying to do. I think one of the greatest things and one of the easiest ones to look at is the New England Patriots. Yeah, they bring in different people, but the reality is that some of their key pieces and those pillars have been in that system. They understand what the coach wants. They create the culture that he's envisioned, and that just seems to permeate throughout the group. So I think as you see those things take hold and you see John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan put their stamp on that program, you'll resonate with how the players respond, react, and feel about what's going on. And as you see those players buying into and growing in that system, then you're heading in the right direction. And nevertheless, 2 wins may not be exactly where they want to be this year, but I think it's a start into heading into the right direction.
Something that you see with the Patriots, you brought them up, is that the relationship between Bob Kraft and the people that he has hired and put in place is really strong. The relationship in San Francisco, we see both John and Kyle speak very highly of one another. We know they communicate. How important is that when you're starting all over and the wins don't come as easily?
I think there are 3 to 4 pieces, I tell you, that have to happen in an organization when you have that, which are first the people, and then chemistry, the directive of the plan, and then the execution of that plan. So in that case, I would tell you they have good people. I know Kyle, I know John, and I would tell you that especially John, excellent person, probably one of the finest people I've met in football. And then chemistry, to your point, if they communicate, they're on the right chemistry, they have the right communication skills to, both address the culture and the group of people and what they're trying to do. That's a vital part. And then I said, they got to have a plan. So obviously, if they got the communication part, they've hopefully worked on a plan that they would execute together. And then the final piece of that is just the execution of that, which is stay true to the course with time and understanding what they want their narrative to be. So what pieces come first? Are we building the offensive line? Are we trying to identify the quarterback? Whatever the pieces they think are the most important for them, as long as they stay true to that, they should be fine.
We're spending a few minutes with Ray Farmer. Before he was the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, he did some pro personnel work with the Kansas City Chiefs, the director there, also a scout for the Atlanta Falcons. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence here on CBS Sports Radio. You bring up quarterbacks, and that obviously is the highest profile position in football. There's always so much buzz about finding, identifying, bringing in your franchise QB, and it's an inexact science, as you know, because you were in pro personnel. You were a scout for several years with the Falcons. With the massive profile of the NFL and all the attention that's now on the draft and on the scouting process, where do you start when you're trying to pick, whether it be a franchise quarterback or a pass rusher or a member of the O-line? Where do you start, Ray?
I think you always start with the tape. I think it always goes back to how the guy perform on tape. And when you look at the tape, was the guy able to perform his duties in a complicit fashion for how you want him to play? So every good scout knows that you can't fool the eye in the sky. And so as you watch the tape and you get to resonate with how you want that person to play, I think that's what's most important. And then the follow-up to that is, when you get to the next level, then do you ask the young man to do what he did that you saw on tape? I think a lot of the failures come when you take guys out of circumstances where they've been comfortable in college doing what they want to do or doing what they've done to put themselves in a position to be drafted, and then you change the game plan on them for what they're supposed to execute and how they're supposed to perform, and then subsequently they fail. And people wonder why, he's a bust. Well, he's not necessarily a bust, because then you see guys change clubs and then they go right back to being good players because they get put in a position to do what they were asked to do previously. So it's matching all of those things together. I think that comes together. And when you really look at it, like I said, it starts with watching the tape and then making that evaluation of what can the guy do positively.
So that's on the field. That's the X's and O's. But there's also this, as I say, this profile around the NFL. It's a year-round sport now. There's so much attention. Social media, it's a totally new wrinkle in the last decade. So as a scout or as someone who's evaluating personnel, what intangibles do you have to know that a guy is a safer, I'm using my air quotations, but a safer pick?
Okay, again, from the personal and the character side of it, it's all the same. It's the funny thing about the whole process in and of itself is that it's all secondhand information until you get a chance to talk to the kid.
Right.
So you can't really engage the player when he's going through his senior season or prior. And so you got to wait until these, moment opportunities that you have 2 to 3 months before the draft to try to put a full composite together on whether or not this kid's going to have success. And so in that, you gather as much information as possible of talking to coaches and administrators and anyone in and around this person to get a composite of who they are and what makes them tick. And through that, I think that's one of the big flaws in the personnel game is that I can't engage the kid and I can't talk to anybody about him other than the people that surround him, but he never really gets to speak for himself. And then you have these limited engagements. Those engagements then hopefully give you a better picture as to who the kid is and what he can do. But I don't know many really good relationships that start with, 2 to 3 or 4 conversations that you have with an individual, and the rest of it's all hearsay and secondhand information. But nevertheless, that's the way that we've been doing it for the last, 50, 60 years. And there are wrinkles in it. And it comes down to guys that can go out, build relationships with people, and those are your scouts, that then they got to have those trusted relationships that bring you quality information, because it's that information that you're going to trust when making those decisions.
Got it. It's certainly an extensive process. One of the big stories over the past week in the NFL, really dominated for several days and then on into the football weekend, was the Giants and Eli Manning and him being asked to to kind of give way to younger QBs, and it turned into him not starting at all and his streak being over. And now the head coach and the general manager in New York have lost their jobs, and the owner has talked about how poorly the whole situation was handled. But you're a former GM. What is the right way to handle something like that?
I don't think it's ever easy when you talk about guys that have had tremendous careers and success like Eli has, and the notion of everybody wanting to see and venture off into a different area. And specifically, I think one of the things I heard said, and I'll echo the comment, is that, a player of Eli's stature has earned a certain amount of respect that requires, a certain way to handle it. And again, being a professional, he's never one to stand in the way of what he would call organizational business, which is pretty much what he said, in the sense that they have to make the decisions they have to make. And as a good team player, he goes along with it. Nevertheless, I think that's a difficult circumstance.
Sure.
Moving on from really good players is hard. And unless injury or something derails them to where it makes it easier because he's not available, it's always going to become one of those circumstances where it doesn't sit well with both fans and or people watching that think differently than those making those decisions. So unfortunate for both Jerry and Ben that they had to suffer that fate. But I do think that when I look at that circumstance, that's one that, again, hindsight looking back, do you take him out? Probably not. if that's going to be the end result. But nevertheless, I think in whatever case, they were trying to do what they thought was best for the organization and not just best for themselves.
Certainly is a blessing that Eli handles himself with professionalism and grace and didn't make it even worse than it could have been. I mean, it was bad. It was a huge uproar, but Eli himself always is the same. He's the same guy that he's been since he got into the league 14 years ago. You
said it right. I mean, he's a guy that professionally was not going to say, this is wrong and, woe is me. Never been his attitude. And I think that had he taken a different tack, it could have been much, much, much worse. But again, one of the things I learned from Herman Edwards when I was in Kansas City was that pros do what pros do. And the guys that handle it professionally and do the right thing are the guys that have staying power in this league. And it's been proven both with both Eli and Peyton of different circumstances. Peyton was hurt his last year in Indianapolis, but nevertheless handled it the right way. And even when it was time to part ways, handled it like a professional. So kudos to them.
It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio. So, Ray, coming out of Monday Night Football, we had the chippiness between the Bengals and the Steelers, the NFL trying to eliminate the helmet-to-helmet hits. When you look at what the league is doing, is it making a difference?
I think it does always make a difference when you try to uphold safety. And I think that's what players are trying to respond to for the most part. I think they did a really good job initially trying to, I'll use the word legislate, some of the violence out of the game with helmet-to-helmet hits and guys attacking guys in positions where they were vulnerable. And I think that's what was legislated the other night, is that crackback blocks or, blindside hits, as they call them,
Sure.
are no longer a part of the game. I'm old enough to have played when they were normal pieces and were applauded as being great hits. But I think that the reality is what we've learned and how we've tried to grow the game and advance the narrative for the NFL and our fans and the player safety. Then, yeah, those hits are dangerous and subsequently require that players that execute those type of hits have to deal with the penalties that come with it. And so the league made their decisions, and those players will deal with those circumstances. But player safety has to be one of the important things that we uphold, because without the players, there are no games.
How should players be hitting in 2017?
I think that the game is the game. I mean, I think you got to figure out how to play physical without being detrimental to your opponent. So, again, taking guys out at the knees, taking guys with headshots, it's not a place for that. I think that you can play the game fast, physical, and still make it fun and entertaining for fans to watch. I will say that, as a former player and being around this game for over the last 20 years, it is very, very, very difficult in the heat of the moment to make some of those split-second decisions. And so I think some of the things that happen, it may result in a head-to-head blow that you see when they slow down a camera angle to 10,000 frames per second or whatever the cameras are shooting now. But it's hard for a guy in full speed to change his body angle because his helmet touched another guy's helmet for 1 inch. I think that's a difficult circumstance, and it seems like most of the onus is put on the defense, and occasionally offensive guys get it. But I think that when we look at the game, there's definitely a way to play where we can execute the game, play to our fundamentals, and do the things that have been encouraged and asked of the players. But I think also as administrators and people that watch the game and legislate the game, we got to be fair in the sense of what we're asking guys to do and how we're asking them to do it.
Certainly pertinent when it comes to the college game, the high school game, and on down into youth football. I've got a couple of friends even who, with their young kids, high school kids, they're already done with their football careers because of concussions, and now the fact that they're identified so differently than they used to be. You're involved with this National Youth Football Championship, which is a partnership between Legacy Global Sports and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What does this look like?
It looks like an opportunity to really engage kids on a platform and encourage them, but not only through the sport of football, but through the camaraderie and all the other positives that come along with it. So engaging the families, engaging the coaches, engaging the players on how football not only changed my life, but gave me an opportunity to see different things outside of what I'm normally used to seeing. So the travel that I did in and around football, the opportunities that it presented me, gave me an opportunity to look at the world differently than I had been prior. So this expansive platform that the National Youth Football Championships and the Hall of Fame and Legacy Sports have come up with has been phenomenal with all the different regions that we've invited, from Chesapeake to Illinois and the Midwest to Oxnard, California out west to you name it. We have regional competitions going on all around the country. 10 different regional tournaments took place that all of those championships will meet in Canton, and hopefully give these kids and these parents and these coaches an opportunity to see not only what football is doing for them in their towns, wherever they may be, but then also nationally, and then also give them a chance for bragging rights. I think it's important as well for those kids to understand that winning is good, and being a gracious loser is a part of it as well. So I've been a part of some really, really, really good youth football programs the last couple weekends in the tournaments I was able to attend, and watching not only the sportsmanship, but the talent of these young men and the support of their parents and coaches has been phenomenal.
Well, Ray, considering your participation, your involvement in the game at pretty much every level, how cool is it to have the championship being played at the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
I think it's phenomenal. I think the parents, the kids, everyone that's been involved has been elated about the opportunity to come to Canton and demonstrate their talents on the field, and also visit the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think it all kind of comes together in a culmination where you get to see all of it. And so for the young kids that are just starting out playing, and for us, it's 7U is the youngest guys in the tournament, and then it goes all the way up to 14U, so kids that are entering high school and then hopefully going on to move on to bigger and better careers. They get a chance to see it all. And I think that that's what it comes down to, is giving these kids, like I said, an opportunity to be a part of something that I think is really special. And it's the first time ever you'll get teams from all across the country getting together and playing a real youth national football championship, and doing it at the Hall of Fame just puts the cherry on top.
Sounds fantastic. Ray Farmer, former general manager for the Cleveland Browns, also with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Falcons, NFL veteran himself. It's good to catch up with you. Thank you so much for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time. And for those out there that are listening, if you can go to youthfootballchampionship.com, you can find all the information there. And we're excited to see where it goes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ray.
Thank you, Amy. Take care.